I grew up in the 1960s, watching those TV commercials with those starving kids in Africa who stared vacantly at the camera with sad eyes and distended bellies. And in 6th grade, my Glee Club teacher, Mr. Collins, had us change the words in this song we were singing. 3 billion people in the world to 4 billion people in the world. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe that the population was so big. And I was even more shocked because no one else in the class seemed at all disturbed by this fact. And a couple days later, I told my friend Susie Hollander that because there seemed to be too many people in the world for it to handle, that I wasn't going to have any kids. And she looked at me and she replied that she was going to have 3. And I felt pretty alone in my beliefs. And 37 years later, I still feel pretty alone in my beliefs, and I'm still shocked that not more people are disturbed by population growth. And I think it's because, as a species, we've decided not to talk about it, to kind of tuck it away. So I'm here to untuck it. Modern man first showed up on Earth 200,000 years ago. And by 1850, we had reproduced so successfully, there were 1 billion people on the planet. That means it took 200,000 years for us to put the first billion people on Earth. The next billion came in 100 years. 200,000 years to get to the first billion, 100 years to get to the second billion. Now, we add 1 billion people to the planet every 12 years. And in 2011, the world population reached 7 billion people. Now, this surge in growth came about because of improvements in agriculture and medicine, because as a species, we are a biological success story. Survival of the fittest, we have survived. And we're also a religious success story. We have gone forth and multiplied. But now we have to stop, or it will be our downfall. And just to give you an idea of how fast population grows, Bangladesh had a hurricane that killed 139,000 people. How long did it take Bangladesh to replace those deaths with 139,000 new births? 2.5 weeks. Now, the world population is growing at just 1% a year, which might not sound like very much, but 1% of 7 billion is actually a big number. It means that every day we add 220,000 people to the planet. Every day. And this is unsustainable, which means that at some point the world population is going to stop growing. The question is, how? Will it stop growing because of famine, disease, a war over resources? Or will it stop growing because people choose to have smaller families? And by smaller families, I mean one-child families. And this is where people start getting nervous talking about overpopulation and population issues because they're scared that I'm going to take away their rights to have children. But I don't want to take people's rights away. I want to give people rights. Forcing people to have fewer children does not work. In fact, the fastest and most efficient way to stabilize the world population is to send girls to school and to empower women and to give everyone access to and education on birth control. And those are good things. And as a culture, we need to emphasize the benefits of having a one-child family so people will choose to have fewer kids. Because for thousands of years, we've been inculcated with this ethic that big families are happy families and only children are lonely children. Couples like myself and my husband Ian who have chosen not to have kids were childless instead of child-free. And myself, several times, I have been accused of being selfish because of my decision not to have children. And all this made sense when it was important for us to procreate for our survival. But now, for our survival, we have to not procreate. And we have to change and rewire our biology and our culture to recognize the benefits of a one-child family, because right now, mostly what we see is the negatives. For example, when a country's population falls, there's all this economic doom and gloom in the media, because capitalism is based on eternal growth. Capitalism depends upon more and more consumers. So yeah, when population lowers, the economy will suffer. But it will suffer less than if there's no more oil and food and water, because there are 10 billion people on the planet in 40 years, which is what the UN is projecting. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this population issue sounds troublesome, but we should be having the babies. We're smart and we're educated and we listen to TED Talks and we can afford kids, and heck, our offspring, they might save the world. Even my mom says, oh, Alexandra, you'd be such a good mother, and your kids, they'd be wonderful. And they might be wonderful, but they would also be wasteful, because North Americans use 32 times the resources as someone from a developing country, so it's even more important that we have smaller families. For example, someone in the United States on average uses 176 gallons of water a day, compared to the average person from Africa who only uses 5 gallons a day. And it's not just vis-a-vis poor countries either. We here in the United States, we use twice the energy as someone from France or England or Japan. So yeah, there are a lot of countries that have a higher fertility rate than we do here in the United States. But we all have to aspire to a one-child family, especially those of us living here. Maybe you're thinking, well, don't worry, Alexandra, technology will save us. And yes, it's possible that we might be able to eke a few more years of resources because of some new inventions or technologies. But in the end, even if we can feed and house 14 billion people, what would their lives be like? I mean, the population's going to have to stop growing at some point, so why not stop now, instead of wishing that some invention or technology will save us that doesn't even exist yet and we're not even sure works? So for everyone to have quality of life, the number of humans on Earth needs to go down. And I believe that it needs to go down to 2 billion people, which sounds radical because there are 7 billion people on the planet today, but it's actually the world population of just 80 years ago. So let's change our idea of what the ideal family looks like. 1 is a beautiful number. And let's not be afraid to talk about overpopulation, because it is not about taking rights away from people. It is about giving opportunities to women, children, and future generations. And lastly, let's be part of the solution and choose from now on to bring forth no more than 1 child ourselves. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. It's great to see you all, and it's great to be with you, Jennifer. It's been one heck of a week for both of us.
Oh, yes, indeed, indeed.
Oh,
It has. I've been
yes.
so busy as well. Been super, super busy.
Well, we've got a full house and we've got a full
Oh, do
show.
we?
We've got an
Oh, that's great.
interesting
Oh,
show, I
fabulous.
would say.
We sure
Yes, we
do.
do. We
Mhm.
we're going to go about dealing with overpopulation, and we're going to show you all these different viewpoints. And as the research was being done, and Jennifer and I were sending articles back and forth all week, and talking about what we wanted to do, it was quite apparent that there are so many viewpoints out there that we couldn't possibly bring everything in. There was just no way. So I'm going to let Jennifer give you the overview of what we're going to do tonight. I did not make an intermission, but there is a little video, and she can give you the little, like I said, overview, and then remember, this is all these different viewpoints. And that's the beauty of what we do. We show you what other people are
Yeah.
saying, and we don't we're not going to sit here and tell you what to do or what's right or whatever. We're going to give you the options, pick and choose like the Chinese restaurant menu. Pick one from
Indeed,
column A.
indeed. And I'm sure everybody here knows that we have 8 billion humans now on Earth. Yay, team. Bred yourself.
Yay!
You've bred yourself into extinction, suckers.
Wow. Bred ourselves
I
into
hope it was
extinction.
worth it.
Oh my God. Well,
Oh,
let's see what
definitely.
all the
So
people
let's
that,
take a look
yeah.
at our journey today, guys. So listen up. So we're going to start off with anthropocentrism, the human supremacy myth. Correct, Sandy? I've got
Mm-hmm.
that right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Oh,
hang on,
yeah.
guys. hmm
Yes.
And then something from the Unread Initiative. We've got overpopulation and overconsumption and an analysis of this, which is going to be pretty
Yep.
interesting. Then we're popping over to Boomers Daily. Is that
Yeah.
correct, Sandy?
Oh,
Boomers
yes.
Daily?
Some I found. Oh, yes. There's so much
That's
out
a
there.
real thing? That's a
Oh, it's
thing?
a real thing. There's a lot out there, a
Yeah.
lot of different publications.
Yeah. So guess how many new humans a day jump onto this earth? Anybody venture a guess out there?
I
It's
don't know. What do they say?
390,000 new
Jesus.
humans a day. And
A
if you
day.
remember in that video that we just
Oh,
saw, which
boy.
is 10 years old when the population was 7 billion,
Yeah.
she said something like 200 and some odd humans a day, didn't she? Do you recall? I don't know, but
Oh, a
it's
lot.
more now.
Yeah.
So
The 9 years
so
ago.
good job. We continue to exponentiate our way out of existence. So yes, we're going to drop into Boomers Daily, and then David Attenborough. The planet can't cope with overpopulation. So this is something that he has about him actually, and what he says. And then we're going to drop into
Mm-hmm.
Statista. And this is actually pretty cool. These have like smart graphs and you can
Oh,
see,
yeah.
all sorts of information. So that is going to be pretty cool to see. And
Graph
then
night.
what? Hmm?
Graph night.
Yeah,
We love them.
graph night.
Yeah.
We love graphs. We love graphs. And then something from Population Research Institute. What is the myth of overpopulation? And let me just read you this little snippet. The myth of overpopulation is an unfounded belief that the number of people on Earth will exceed the carrying capacity of the planet in the foreseeable future. So this is basically about freaking population alarmists, which
Mm-hmm.
we
The
should be alarmed.
denial.
Definitely
Well, yeah.
should be alarmed. And then from interesting engineering, boy, did you really come up with it this week,
I
Sandy.
went
I
through the
must
tech.
say. I mean,
Everybody,
these are like
the techno-utopians here.
these are publications I've never heard of. Interesting engineering using smart cities to accommodate overpopulation effects. Right. And then we're going to finish up with a new blogger that we haven't read here before, Jared Brock. Have we read Jared here before?
No.
Now that I'm a dad, I can finally be honest about overpopulation. The most pro-human thing you can do is to have fewer children. So that, good people among us, is where we're going on our journey today in our deep dive into overpopulation on Earth.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to start. So basically what I wanted to do was take you through all these different viewpoints of different people from, different groups that I found on the internet. I mean, there's overwhelming amounts of information on overpopulation. So really, we're just going to bring you some of them. And I thought this was really a good way to start us deep into the myth. And I'll start with this one. And the anthropocentrism, the human supremacy myth. And this one is very interesting. It was by, I checked out this this blog and all that, and I thought, you know what, it's worthy of reading. And you take what you want, and you don't use what you don't want, but we give you the information. So here we go. This is the what is this? The well, let me see if I I can't find the writer. Well, she's on the bottom. I just want to go through. Oh, Jan Vanna. It's a guy, actually. It's a guy. So Jan Vanna, and very interesting. So anthropocentrism, it refers to human-centered or anthropocentric viewpoint. In philosophical terms, anthropocentrism is often used to label the belief that humans are the only or primary species of importance and high moral standing. Destructive human activities such as deforestation, trawling, and mining are examples of how this belief can lead to a negative impact on our natural environment. While past human behaviors could be attributed to ignorance, present-day access to education and scientific facts, it means that these actions are no longer either practically or morally justified. Around 10,000 years ago, with the development of agriculture, people began to believe that they could move away from the hunter-gatherer narrative, and they could meet human needs by managing their own ecosystems. They developed ways to manage land and water, such as fishing and growing crops, farming animals, and gathering construction materials for housing and fuel. In this way, humans relied on their innate intelligence for survival, but to the detriment of man's harmonious relationship with the natural world. We depict animals as savage, vicious, and violent, and humans as civilized, intelligent, and compassionate. If animals were the tellers of this tale, it would be a very different story. Unquote. Colleen Patrick Goudreau. Ultimately, humans began to bypass the ecological laws which had been established through thousands of years of evolution. The Industrial Revolution of the 18th century began the process of mankind almost divorcing itself from nature entirely, creating urban landscapes which were not conducive to healthy relationship with the natural world. Men had entered an era... Man, not men, all of us, man had entered an era which would witness the development of the greatest inventions in history, designed to run factories, increase food production, heat homes, and transport people across great distances. This led to urbanization and the destruction of the natural habitat. And it was increasing levels of pollution, in particular the harmful emissions produced by burning coal, which was by this time being mined across the world to power buildings and industrial machinery. A growing human population also led to greater food consumption, particularly meat. Humans had come to believe that their superiority over other species, known as speciesism, neglecting or refusing to consider the intelligence and emotions of animals. This anthropocentric arrogance allowed people to justify the way animals were treated through intensive food production and the emergence of animal entertainment, such as blood sports. The dichotomy between humans and nature, look at that, is why many believe that mankind still maintains a dominance over the earth. Does anyone really still believe that we have dominion over fish of the sea and the fowl of the air and every living thing moveth on the planet? That's by Jan Vanna, who is author of the book The Message, and that's what this website is really around. The new scientific name for the period of history when humanity presents as dominant species on the planet is known as Anthropocene. The word, coined in the 1980s, comes from the Greek terms for human, anthro, and new, scene. So while some argue that humans began changing the global environment around 50,000 years ago, many date it to the emergence of agriculture around 10,000 years ago. So from an archaeological point of view, we see that humans have been altering ecosystems for around 50,000 years. And a recent study by ecologist Earl Ellis of the University of Maryland suggests that for at least 3,000 years, our hunting, farming, and birding activities have shaped most of the current landscapes on our planet. It is also thought that the introduction of plastic could be a key marker of the Anthropocene period. As an exclusively man-made, mostly non-biodegradable material, plastics can be found in every corner of the earth. There is even evidence that plastic is being deposited into the planet's fossil record. So the Earth, it may be 4.5 billion years old, but modern humans have only existed for a mere 200,000 years. So during this time, man's behaviors have impacted the physical, chemical, and biological systems of our planet in enormous and irreversible ways. In the past 60 years alone, a period sometimes known as the Great Acceleration, the impact of carbon dioxide emissions, global warming, habitat destruction, animal extinction, and natural resource extraction are all signs that humans have altered the planet in ways that may be potentially disastrous for our future survival. And there is no doubt that our climate is becoming less stable and a lot warmer, with extreme weather events occurring ever more frequently and more violently, which really is like, again, we talk about saving the planet for mankind. Shouldn't we be talking about saving the planet from mankind? Few scientists now disagree that human impact rather than natural process is the primary cause of accelerated climate change brought about by activities that are uniquely human, including agriculture, urbanization, deforestation, and pollution. So, but what many scientists, governments, and policymakers still refuse to publicly admit is that human overpopulation is a problem that needs to be urgently addressed. Further growth in human population, expected to surpass 8 billion, which it just did, will lead to even greater demand for natural resources and living space, a demand which can only accelerate the global emergency that we are threatened with today. And this is by Friends of Retha. So this will all be in the show notes for you. Jan Vanna is the author of the book.
What is this book that he has written, The Message? I've never heard of this. What is this book? Friends of Retha?
Yeah, Falcondale Press.
Yeah.
Press. The author is it's a pseudonym, and this
Uh,
person's had a long professional career, over 40 years. The Message is his first and possibly only work of fiction. So I will have that
uh,
this in
interesting.
the notes. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it
And
looks kind of interesting, right? It reminds
I
me of
yeah.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the cover of that. Remember that back in the day,
Yes.
right? It
Mhm.
does.
I
Yeah.
do, I do, I do. And I actually was going to order the book, and then I realized right away, I was like, well, first I got to make sure I know how much the book is, because it wasn't showing in American dollars. And I'm an idiot, and I didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, so I have to see, and it comes from it gets shipped, and I don't know if it's an audiobook, probably not, but it seems like a very compelling and interesting book.
yeah,
So we're going to
it
move
does.
on. And we're going to move on.
Yes.
Now, again, I want you guys to understand we're bringing you all kinds of different perspectives. And so, pick and choose what you like. And Jennifer, she's going to start reading this one.
Yes,
There she
indeed.
goes.
I shall. I shall.
Mhm.
So, this is called Overpopulation and Overconsumption. Overpopulation, a phenomenon in which the number of people surpasses a specific threshold, such as the maximum carrying capacity of a place. As the human population has been inclined towards a rapid increase over time, overpopulation is singled out and seen by many as a threat that hinders global development. Regardless, is it merely the issue of overpopulation and how many people the earth can hold? Despite overpopulation being a substantial concern itself, there is another issue that highly revolves around it: overconsumption. Overconsumption is a situation in which resources are being used excessively at a rate that is higher than the production rate. According to David Scatterwhite, a senior fellow at the International Institute for Environmental and for Environment and Development in London, quote, "It is not the number of people on the planet that is the issue, but the number of consumers and the scale and nature of their consumption." As
You like that
ditto.
one.
Yeah. As the number of people in an area increases, many individuals tend to consume immense quantities of natural resources. This enlarges the ecological footprint, which is the quantity of nature needed to supply an individual with the resources they need for survival, including housing, food, and other necessities. High associated with overpopulation, overconsumption, and growth in the ecological footprints result in a myriad of adverse environmental impacts, including depletion of resources and climate change. Ooh, look at this picture. Desolation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
The amount of greenhouse gas emissions is one of the strongest indicators of how high the amount of consumption is in an area. Generally, citizens who dwell in wealthier and more affluent nations consume more resources compared to those in less wealthy or urbanized countries, and hence contribute to leaving a greater footprint. Due to the increasing demand for resources in wealthier nations, there has been a resource shortage in which the supply of these resources is not adequate to support the individuals of less wealthy nations. More specifically, the consumption of single urban dweller from low-income nations is low enough to make little or no contribution to the emissions of greenhouse gases. If the consumption rates in these wealthy nations increase to correspond and reach that of wealthier nations, a major concern would be raised as it would provoke a more negative influence on society. Looking at the bigger picture, overconsumption is one of the biggest factors that cause a rapid increase in global warming and climate change, discouraging environmental sustainability. Global consumption has escalated over the years, and so has capitalism and production. As a matter of fact, as industrialization and production increase on a global scale, the environment becomes more susceptible to climate change and unsustainability, taking into account the rise in carbon emissions and toxic pollutants. For, ex- for example, China has been one of the most polluting countries in the present day, still encountering high overconsumption despite its past one-child policy. Qatar, on the other hand, has one of the highest carbon emissions per capita, and it is predicted by the Global Footprint Network that the Earth would need approximately 5 more resources than it has if every individual consumed as much as a coyote. Also, having one of the highest emissions, Australia's demand per person for resources such as wood, food, pasture uses an area of land that is nearly 4 times greater compared to what is available around the world on average. With the current world population being 7.8 billion, correct that, 8 billion, guys, count them. The United Nations has predicted that it could potentially reach 9.7 billion by 2050, equivalent to 11 billion by 2100. Absolutely. If this number of people seems unsustainable, how many people hypothetically can the Earth be able to support? Experts claim that it is practically impossible to determine the precise number of people, as it is dependent on a series of further complex factors within countries, including advancement of technology. Furthermore, the utmost indicator of a more sustainable environment is how responsible humans are regarding the consumption of resources. Only when humans alter their materialistic mindsets will the world be capable of tackling the unfavorable environmental impacts of overconsumption associated with overpopulation. Like Mahatma Gandhi once said, quote, "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed." Wow.
Okay. So there's another point of view.
Yeah.
And,
Tell
and
ya.
you know, I mean, of course, overconsumption is huge. Of course. Of course. All right. Well, we're going to move on because we're not going. We're going to try to make this not an hour and a half tonight. We're going to try to go a little quicker because of me. All right. Now, this one is an interesting
Boomers
one.
Daily.
Yeah, Boomers Daily. All right. And God, everybody here could probably
Boomers Daily.
really, yeah, we're giving you the Boomers Daily. Okay. So this one, news, views, and reviews for 55 plus. Now this has a video which I want to play, and I'm going to I'm going to play this video, make sure it's going to work, and it is. Okay, let's hope. 390,000 new humans a day. And I'm not going to read this whole thing because you'll get where they're coming from with the video. So let us make sure this works, and we are going to start this. Let's see. Sometimes, for some reason, and I hate to do this. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's go.
Just 1 billion humans to over 7.8 billion in 2020. And still, over 4 babies are born every second. That's around 390,000 new humans a day. So on a planet with dwindling resources and an increasing strain on our natural systems, is curbing our booming population the key to solving our environmental woes? Mathematically, we know that more people means more demand for Earth's natural resources. It can actually be simplified down into this equation: population times affluence times technology equals impact on the environment. So the basic argument that fewer people would mean less greenhouse gases, less pollution, less habitat destruction makes logical sense, but only on the surface. Because notice that other key variable in the equation, affluence. The more money populations have to burn, the more fossil fuels are burned along with it. In 2018, just North America and China were responsible for almost half of the world's CO2 emissions. These are also the countries with the highest concentrations of the world's wealthiest people. And get this, their populations are actually living longer and having fewer babies, so their population growth is slowing down. Now, by contrast, the poorest half of the world, where most global population growth is currently concentrated, produces only 10% of the world's CO2 emissions. And this is because those populations typically lack the technology and wealth that result in high energy expenditure, increased industrialization, and pollution. So in climate change projections that take these imbalances into account, it's been shown that redistributing wealth, so reducing both extreme wealth and extreme poverty, has as much impact on carbon emissions as reducing overall population would. Now let's continue taking the climate crisis as our example. The idea that fewer people equals less climate change works again in theory, but in practice, calculations show that's not the case. Even in projected scenarios where a reduction in population does make a difference in emissions, it's not enough of a difference to affect projected temperature rise. So, to put it bluntly, no amount of population reduction would achieve the reduction in emissions necessary to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius in our near future. You may have also heard that just 100 companies produce 71% of the world's emissions. And this is true, but if you take a closer look at that list, you'll find that those companies are oil and gas conglomerates. And 8 of the top 10 of those aren't even companies. They're either fully or partially state-owned oil and gas entities in places like China, Russia, Iran, India, and more. And that same report goes on to say that 90% of all of the emissions from those 100 companies actually comes from downstream combustion of coal, oil, and gas for energy purposes. That's the energy we use everywhere around the world to heat our homes, fuel our transport, produce our goods, all provided by those 100 companies. So if we take all of this information together, it boils down to this core idea. It's not huge populations that are making the difference. It's huge resource usage. And this huge resource usage isn't coming from tons of people, it's coming from relatively few. So it seems the thing that would make an actual difference is not a reduction in population, but instead is a radical shift in the way we as a species use and share resources. And at the root of it, change what resources we're using. For example, the US lowering its carbon usage by 1/3 of what it is today would have a greater impact than reducing the US population by 100 million people. So why is population restriction such a popular go-to argument for how to tackle environmental problems like the climate crisis? See, realistic solutions for population stabilization and resource redistribution involve long-term global plans like improving gender equality in the form of women's access to education and family planning. We should always be asking who benefits from an idea that's not necessarily based in logic. For those who say population restriction is a solution to our problems, whose population are they talking about reducing? And for what purpose? Historically, this argument has been used by those who have an agenda to fulfill, an agenda that's much more often driven by things like classism, racism, or xenophobia than by actual fact, especially when the real solution is redistribution of wealth, as well as rethinking our use of natural resources that currently make a very small percentage of people very rich. What are your thoughts on the population control argument? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more on climate change solutions, then check out this video here. Subscribe to Seeker to keep up with all of your debunkings of popular...
Okay, so it's a Seeker video, and that is what the Boomer News used in their argument, you know, for what they think is happening. And they're talking about basically the same thing, the projected scenarios in where population does make a difference in emissions, it's not enough of a difference to affect projected temperature rise. No amount of population reduction would achieve the reduction in emissions necessary to keep global warming between 2 degrees Celsius. So that's the argument of this article. All right. And,
Interesting.
yes. And I told you guys, we're bringing you different perspectives. Perspectives. So the next perspective is actually the World Economic Forum. Oh my God. Oh, the World Economic Forum. And, the World Economic Forum. I really wish I could find the one I wanted to play with that one. But, yeah. So Jennifer, I don't know if you want to read the whole thing, but it is David Attenborough. It's from 2018. And, of course, this is their, the standard, if you'd like
What
to
are
go
we
for
what
it.
are we looking at it? Let's see how much text it really is. Let's
Okay.
just see how we do, and then if it
We'll go
feels
for
like
it.
we need to abandon it, let's feel free to do so.
All right.
Does that sound good?
All right. Yeah. And
And
remember,
and
this
I'll
is another perspective, and David Attenborough and the World Economic Forum. These are the gazillionaires around the world. So go for it.
the title of the article, David Attenborough, The Planet Can't Cope with Overpopulation. The naturalist David Attenborough once said that the creature he finds most extraordinary is a 9-month-old human baby. But now he believes the planet can't sustain many more. In an interview for BBC Newsnight, the 92-year-old British broadcaster said, "In the long run, population growth has to come to an end. There are some reasons for thinking that it will happen almost inevitably. But it is very alarming at the rate we're going. And although people will say in the long run we are going to stabilize, they're going to stabilize, as far as I can see, at a rather higher level than Earth can really accommodate." Reading between the lines, it sounds like a clusterfuck in a trash bin.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a trash bin. And wait. It is. Yep.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Oh, Jennifer, stop.
Roughly 83 million people are added to the world's population each year, according to the UN, with modern advances in medicine and nutrition to thank for their survival into adulthood and old age. But while fertility levels and birth rates are dropping globally, the overall trend is continued population growth, with an increasing pressure on the planet's limited resources and impact on the environment. Why should we take note? Attenborough, whose 2015 interview by Barack Obama about climate change was screened in more than 50 countries, has contributed to a huge amount to shaping our views on environmental issues. As UN head of environmental Eric Sonneheim says, few people have inspired action for the planet like him. And he made some little tweet about it. Wonder how much longer they'll be tweeting out there, Sandy.
You know
now
what?
That Elon's
attention.
got his clutches into it. I'm watching, excuse my digression, but I'm watching what the freak Elon is doing. And I'm like, is this guy utterly insane? I mean, is he utterly insane? Do you think, he obviously knows nothing about IT and systems and software and applications and all that. And just saying, just making these ultimatums, he has no idea what he's doing.
Jennifer, Elon gets the most flushes. He seems to get the most flushes on our channel.
Fuck Elon Musk. Thank you, Elon.
I haven't paid attention. Oh my God. All right.
Oh. When Blue Planet Planet 2 aired in November 2017, featuring an episode on the ocean's plastic problem. Some 80 million people in China alone tuned in. Now it seems Sir David is turning his attention to the issue of overpopulation, and the world should take note. Spend a minute watching the world population counter tick up on worldometers, and you'll see just how quickly we're swelling in numbers. The current figure stands at around 7.7. Nope, 8. Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah.
And
This
8
is 4
billion.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing how quickly it's going up. And this is projected to become 9.8 billion by 2050, according to the UN. China and India are the most populous nations on the planet, with 1.4 billion and 1.3 billion, respectively, according to the UN's World Population Prospects. By around 2024, though, India will have overtaken China, while Nigeria, currently the world's 7th largest country, is growing the fastest and is predicted to overtake the United States to become the 3rd largest country before 2050. My God. Japan, by contrast, is seeing its population decline, which is impacting on its economy. While it's true that global fertility levels are in decline, leading to a slower in overall population growth, fertility in the world's 47 least developed countries is still relatively high at 4.3 births per woman between 2010 and 2015, meaning rapid growth of these countries is at 2.4% per year, which is a lot. That is like 2.5 times the actual global rate of increase. So that's going up really high, fast. According to the UN, the populations of 26 African countries are due to at least double in size between 2017 and 2050. As the reviews note, such growth represents a considerable challenge to governments trying to implement the UN Sustainable Development Goals, including ending poverty and hunger. While the birth rate is still growing in some areas, life expectancy is also a major factor when it comes to population growth. Attenborough notes, one of the reasons population has increased as fast as it has is that people like me are living longer than we did, so there are more and more people just because the expectancy of life has increased. Oh my God. The number of people age 60 and over is predicted to double between 2017 and 2050, from 962 million to 2.1 billion globally. These fuckers just won't die.
We're all here. Jennifer, that's good.
Oh my God, this is so ridiculous. So this whole thing. This whole thing is just like so amazingly macabre. But let's just continue and see how we do, guys. Don't get freaked out by what you're hearing. It's all good.
No, it's all good.
Earth's carrying capacity. More people means more carbon footprints, more cars, waste, and emissions, more houses, and more infrastructure to be constructed using the world's limited resources. More mouths to be fed using more water and energy and food production. So, how many people is too many? Scientists are still undecided on the Earth's carrying capacity. You passed it 40 years ago, 80 years ago.
Yeah, before I was born, right?
So, yeah, right? Yeah, probably 100 years ago, you passed the carrying capacity. The maximum number of people it can support indefinitely, with estimates ranging widely between 500 million and more than 1 trillion. So, people say, well, it could be 500 million that could be the carrying capacity. And then some dreamer, probably someone named Elon, thinks it could be more than 1 trillion.
Oh, God, he's nuts. He lost
He's
it.
so
He really
nuts.
did.
He's
The
so
minute
he
he started
really
tweeting,
lost
he got
his mind.
crazy.
He lost
He lost
his
his mind.
Totally lost his mind. Part of the reason is that our consumption of resources varies massively across the globe. An average middle-class American consumes 3.3 times the subsistence level of food and almost 250 times the subsistence level of clean water, according to Professor Stephen Dovers and Colin Butler in their paper, Population and Environment, a Global Challenge. So, if everyone on Earth lived like a middle-class American, then the planet might have a carrying capacity of around 2 billion. However, if people only consume what they actually need, then the Earth could potentially support a much higher figure. As developing countries catch up with the rest of the world, you might think their carbon footprint grows at the same rate. But according to research between 1980 and 2005, many of the nations with the fastest population growth had the slowest rate of carbon emissions. Okay. Earth Overshoot Day. Oh, this is good. Country by Overshoot
2018.
Day 2018. But look at this still. Holy crap. Holy crap. That's worth a study, but not right now.
No.
Ecological overshoot is a key concept in footprint science and happens when we turn resources into waste faster than the planet can resupply them. For example, we're burning through fossil fuels that took millions of years to form at rates far greater than the Earth can replace them. Since 2006, the think tank Global Footprint Network has marked Earth Overshoot Day, the day when humanity has used up nature's resource budget for the year. In 2018, it was held on August 1st, the earliest day it has been since the world went into overshoot in the 1970s, meaning we're using 1.7 Earths every year. God. Our current economies are running a Ponzi scheme with the planet. Mathis Wackernagel. God, get a name change, buddy. Holy cow. Hi, I'm Jennifer Wackernagel. How are you? Doesn't go over well. Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
And Mathis,
No, we are having our bantering.
I apologize to Mathis as well. I'm sure
Okay.
he's a really nice guy.
And I'm sure he's watching right now.
I'm sure. We are borrowing the Earth's future resources to operate our economies in the present. Like any Ponzi scheme, this works for some time. But as nations, companies, or households dig themselves deeper and deeper into debt, they eventually fall apart. What can be done? This is a question a lot of us have asked ourselves for decades.
Yes.
Governments recognize the severity of the situation and have mostly come together over global policies like the UN Paris Agreement to limit carbon emissions and their impact on climate change. In addition, new technologies are being developed to make our use of resources more efficient. As for controlling population growth, the education of women is one key factor. Research shows the higher level to which a woman is educated, the fewer children she is likely to have. In Ghana, for example, women who have been to high school have fertility rates between 2 and 3 children, compared with 6 who have no education. Wow. This could be for several reasons, including learning about desired family size and understanding child health better. This means that the mother is more confident her children will survive. She is also likely to hold more sway within the family, arguing for fewer children if that is what she wants. There is also plenty that individuals can do to reduce their personal footprint. The Global Footprint Network calculates that moving Earth overshoot day back by 5 days every year would mean that by 2050 we're using the resources of less than one planet. Just by eating 50% less meat and replacing it with vegetarian alternatives could save the planet 5 days. As David Attenborough says, if we want to save the Earth, we can no longer afford to keep eating meat. We are omnivores, so biologically, if you could have a biological mortality, you can say, yes, we evolved to eat pretty well everything. But now we've got to a stage in our own social evolution in which that is no longer practical. Sir David says he himself now eats less meat and is bolstered by the knowledge that it's helping the planet. Population growth and the depletion of Earth's resources is a truly global problem. But it's also something where small individual actions will help together to ensure a better future for the planet. Well,
Wow, you did it. She did it. All right, we now have heard from the World Economic Forum of where everybody thinks that they just want it's the eugenics forum. Okay.
Right.
Because that's the conspiracy, right? So now, guys, we are going to actually have some fun with numbers. And this website, we like this Statista, and this is the statistics and facts, and we'll play with this. Over the last 200 years, the world's population has grown rapidly, which we've just read from many different things. So let's look at the overview. And Jennifer, why don't you tell me what you'd like to look at through this, since you love graphs and you are a graph girl.
I do. I'm a graph girl. I'm a graph girl.
Yes, she is.
So this is like, do you see the key insights there just at the very beginning? Well, we could read just this one little blurb. No, it's too boring. Let's not read it. Let's just dive into the graph.
Okay.
It is too boring.
Yeah. I mean, there's all these.
See where it says key insights, world population. Click once on that. And let's see what's happening. So key insights.
Why don't I see it?
Okay, so let me go back. Let me send. Oh dear.
Key insights.
So we're looking at So key insights, population statistics and facts. You see that?
Yeah.
Yep. And then go down and it says key insights, world population. Do you see that? No?
I don't know why I'm having such a problem seeing this. No.
Do you not?
Key insights.
Okay, let me go ahead. So just read it. So I'm sending you a link. Okay.
Oh, you are?
All right.
Okay, she'll send me a link.
I sent you a link so you can you can do it.
And
just
link.
Go down there, down below the abstract, there's key insights, and there's a graph called world population. It's very interesting.
Let's look at that.
Do you see that now?
Yeah, I will look in a second.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to pull it up, but it's not wanting to pull up on this one.
So I can just talk to it a little bit. So in this dreamy universe, it's very sanitized. It's very sanitized, I must say. So magically in this dreamy little universe, at around 2080 or so, we see the light and we just kind of plateau and start decreasing our population spontaneously. Clearly, it's not going to be so tidy, right? Do you see now what I'm talking about? And then most populous country, do you see that all under the key insights, right? That link I sent you.
God. Yeah, but it's the same.
Okay,
thing
let me see. Let me see what your view and my view is a little bit different for some reason.
Okay. Well, I've
I am
got
not sure why,
overview,
but
population, age and gender, population density,
all right.
future
Don't
development,
worry
and
about
then
it.
all
Don't
these
worry about
different.
it.
Okay.
I've got you covered. I want you to follow my directions. If you
Upper
would do
left,
so.
somebody just told me
No,
to look.
no.
Oh,
Okay.
wait.
I am printing. I'm sending you now. Go to that graph there because that's worth a look. That's under the key insights as well. So
I'm having a real problem
do
with
you
this. I
see?
don't know why.
Do you
Nope.
see the graph that I just sent you in chat right now? Do you see that?
No, and I lost goddamn
Yes.
chat.
Come on.
All right, let's see
Yeah.
here. If all of you want to see what I'm doing, okay,
Come on.
let's see. Let's see what I'm doing. It's not even coming up.
Come on.
Not even coming up. No, I'm having. Oh, key insights. Here it is. All right, I got it. Forecast about the development of world population in billions, or there's other ones. There
Did
is
you
most
did you
populous
see the
country.
link? Did you
No,
see
because
the
I
link
can't
that I
open that.
sent you?
I cannot seem to open that. I don't know why. Hang on.
So
I'll
we
put
can't
this down.
communicate. We're here with
No, but I can't.
85 or 90 people, and I can't communicate with you. Oh
No,
boy.
but I can see the key insights. And so you just have to. So I've got world
All right.
population, most populous country, largest city, key insights.
I don't know what you're doing, but I'm
Yeah,
not really sure.
my,
It's a
I
little
can't,
different.
doesn't seem to want to
So do you see
open.
that over now, Sandy? I can see it on your screen. It's in
Hmm.
the upper right. Do you see in the upper right of your screen? No. Oh dear. So frustrating. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, yeah.
World population.
Those are links. Those are
Yeah,
links. That's
sure.
what I was trying to
Okay.
get you to go
And
to.
which one?
All of them.
Okay, we'll go to all of them.
Sorry,
So we have,
guys. We
we'll start.
apologize.
No, it's okay. They're all good with us. So I have world population, most populous country, largest city worldwide. What would you like me to do? I can't open it through the link you
So
sent me.
did you see the thing that I just sent you, the largest population? That's under key insights. Let me see what you're doing here.
All right,
Key insights.
largest population.
Yeah. So, and then what the other thing is that I was just, the only thing I
I'm
care about
sorry.
is the shape. It's all right, Sandy. The only thing I care about is the shape of that graph. Right, guys? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Do you see it?
Yes. It's not going to look like that. That's very tidy. That's quite sanitized. All right. Now, click the back button once and go to the 20 countries with the largest population in mid-2021. It's in the key insights. Now, I don't know where you've gone. I think we should, there you go. That's it. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. This is very interesting because you can see here, it's really China and India. Those are the big ones. And then, far behind that, the US, I think the US population is not increasing at a crazy rate at the moment, but a lot of places are. So it's just kind of interesting. These graphs are very cool. They're well done. Okay, I'm not gonna beat this one to death. And I apologize if I dragged you all through these graphs.
No, these are fun. They're cool as hell. They're great
Yeah.
graphs. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could look at. I mean, look at the gender, the global population by gender. And you can
Yeah.
see men and women. Blue is men, black is women, and it's pretty much following right along.
Yeah,
There's
no,
more men, a little bit more men in 2021 than there were women, but it's still, it's all, but as you notice, they're all just going up. They're all just
yeah,
going
well,
up. And
there's no stopping this train. This train's on its way. Woo!
yeah, we can look also at density,
It's
which
like
I think is
Bruce.
interesting. What about this? Density,
Oh,
Jennifer?
wow. Yeah.
In all these different places, inhabitants per square kilometer. So look at the countries: Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, North America, Oceania, and the world. different per population
What's that
density.
big? What's that big one? That second one? Yeah. What's
Is
that?
Asia.
Okay.
149.7 population
Okay.
density in inhabitants per square kilometer. This is
Yeah.
a lot to play with. And I'm sorry about the beginning. I couldn't get the link, but we are where we wanted to be. We can look at all these different graphs and show
Yeah.
you. This is as of 2021, Asia was the most densely populated region of the world with nearly 150 inhabitants per square kilometer, whereas Oceania's population density was just over 5 inhabitants per square kilometer. Wow, look at that. Worldwide population density was 60 people per square kilometer. So pretty interesting.
Yeah. It's getting dense. I think we should move on, Sandy. What do you think?
Okay, I just want to see if there's anything else here. Let's just look at countries with the smallest populations, because we always look at the biggest one.
Okay.
They're asking me to pay. Oh, jeez, right away I'm looking at something
Abandon.
I like. Oh, wait, real quick. No,
here we
I
go.
can't. Okay, we have to abandon ship. Sorry, guys.
Abandon
Sorry,
ship.
but I
Abandon
can't afford
ship.
to pay for this. But we hey, we used we did it, and now we're moving on. We're going to move on to this one. And this one, okay, this is the Population Research Institute. And the Population Research Institute, I'm calling them the, deniers. They call it the myth of overpopulation. You see, about them, they are who we are. They are the people. It's their founder is Father
these are
Paul
the
Marx.
deniers. Oh my goodness.
Yes,
So this is going to be
yes.
interesting. Who's going to read this?
Go for it if you'd like to.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me go
So
back.
guys, we're going into the devil's lair here.
Yeah, a little
This
bit.
is-
Yeah, but there's
little
people
bit.
that believe, in our chat, and we were just presenting information. So,
All right. What is the myth of overpopulation? The myth of overpopulation is an unfounded belief that the number of people on Earth will exceed the carrying capacity of the planet in the foreseeable future, leading to economic or social collapse, and that actions ought to be taken to curb the population growth. This is what they say population alarmists. We're population alarmists. All right. Population alarmists who buy into the overpopulation myth believe that the world's growing population will strip the earth of its usable resources and will outpace innovation and rates of production. This, they believe, will cause diminishing standards of living, more poverty, more hunger, famine, and starvation, water shortages, pestilence, war and conflict over diminishing resources, and the evisceration of wildlife habitats and environmental catastrophes, i.e., global climate change. Malthus theorized that there were two kinds of checks that kept the population growth rate in check with the food supply. Malthus falsely believed that population checks were necessary to prevent the proliferation of poverty and to prevent catastrophic war, famine, and epidemics caused by overpopulation, a phenomenon known as Malthusian catastrophe. Malthusian catastrophe. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
this is
Malthusian
long.
catastrophe.
Yeah, I don't know if we should read the whole thing because we really have to get to the good one.
We do. Let's abandon. We know that these guys have their head up their ass. Do we all agree that? I don't even want to give them.
Right.
I don't want to give these assholes airtime.
Look at they're talking about forced sterilization programs.
Forget it.
Yeah, but we
These
just wanted to
people
show you what's out there.
Very much so gonna.
But we wanted to show you what's out there because there's so many different viewpoints. And the next one is the Techno-utopians. So here we go with the Techno-utopians, and they using smart cities to accommodate overpopulation effects. And this is, overpopulation is a problem, isn't going away. So this article talks about the condition about the humans, but what they want to talk about is how to prevent it. And they believe, these people in the engineers, the Techno-utopians, they believe in solving it by having smart cities. And so they're going and saying, okay, technological solutions to improve overall quality of life and productivity. So people don't always overlook the problems caused by overpopulation. They try to conquer these circumstances with innovative ideas such as smart cities. And according to Smart Cities, What's in It for Citizens, which is a paper from Juniper Research, the Internet of Things could result in a better quality of life for countless individuals, even those living in crowded areas. So they talk about congestion and reduced issues with hospitals being too full to serve patients that need them, blah, blah, blah. Smart cities are the answer to interesting engineering people and in transportation improvements. And it goes sustainable options for communities. And they're talking about solutions on reducing food waste, using there's a city, Hyderabad, where the apartments were fitted with meters up to 35, which use up to 35% less water. So they're talking about smart cities and solutions, all right? Reducing housing issues in an overpopulated smart cities. Both high-tech and low-tech options are needed. So if you want to and you're interested, there is a lot here. And we're not going to go through all of it, but you get the drill.
This is a hugely long article, but it reminds me of the Jetsons, except it doesn't have little flying cars. But everything else about it, it's very high and sleek and, utopia and beautiful and, life is going to be better in the future. But it doesn't really talk much about climate change. They forgot about that part, didn't they?
I think they did in this article.
Oh, well.
All right.
It doesn't matter.
All right. So listen, guys, we are going to move on to the pièce de résistance, the end, the article that Jennifer will start narrating, and I'm going to pick a little bit of music to go behind this. And I think this one is a great way to bring up the rear.
Okay. That sounds
take
good,
off
Sandy.
with it, and I'll find the right music.
Okay, baby. Now that I'm a dad, I can finally be honest about overpopulation. The most pro-human thing you can do is have fewer children. Look at that graph, Sandy, in the beginning. Oh my God. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? It goes back 10,000 years, and then you can see, just very recently, it just goes straight up. Well, that's going to collapse, isn't it?
I know. Right up. Pew!
Oh my God. Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. Edward Abbey. My beautiful baby boy, Concord Brock, just turned 6 months old today. What a breathtaking joy to parent such a cheery little dude. It has been the happiest 180 days of my life. Like most parents, I could weep for how fast it has flown. But unlike most parents, having Concord has further clarified my thinking around the one issue most parents will rip your head off for even bringing up: overpopulation. Before we had Concord, parents always gave me the same look when I tried to discuss overpopulation. Occasionally, a brave and honest soul would actually voice it. You're not a parent, so you wouldn't understand. Can you fathom how dumb this statement is? As if people can't critique billionaire monopolists because they've never stolen $1 billion or taken advantage of 10,000 workers. As if people can't decry Putin's war crimes because they've never been the dictator of a nuclear nation or the victim of a war crime. That's not how critical thinking works. If anything, not having kids puts you at a much needed emotional remove so you can think clearly about overpopulation. It's also super offensive to people who weren't able to have or adopt kids but want to, as if childless people can't love children just as fully as everybody else. But now I'm a parent. I can bounce conquered on my knee and simultaneously be brutally honest about overpopulation. So here we are. How to lose friends and infuriate people. Writing about overpopulation is extremely tricky because people are far more emotional than rational. Like most of the contentious issues I write about, it isn't personal, but everyone takes it personally. I hate landlording, but not any landlorder. I loathe Airbnb, but one of my dear friends runs a full-time Airbnb. I deplore value extraction, but I have tons of friends who regularly rake wealth off the backs of the working poor via stock speculation. Overpopulation is no different. My best friend has 6 kids. My wife's best friend has 6 kids. That's literally a dozen kids who I adore. I have about 40 kids in my life and would die for each and every one of them. Overpopulation is a systematic issue. It's a systemic issue, not a personal issue. But parents never see it that way. They willfully put on blinders and say stupid things like, "So why do you hate my kids?"
Right. I know.
There's not much you can do to convince people who engage in bad faith arguments. Overpopulator parents refuse to see the broader context in which they live. 300 years ago, when the world's population was 600 million, it literally did not matter if you had a dozen kids. Land was free, building materials were plentiful, soil was rich, food was everywhere, and there were so few people that having 12 children was totally fine. Times have changed in our 8 billion person world. All the land and materials are privately owned, aka monopolized. The majority of the ancient forests are gone. 85% of our soil's nutrition is gone. 80% of the world's fish are gone. Hundreds of millions of jobs are disappearing to robots. Shelter costs are skyrocketing and only getting started. Our water and air are poisoned. The planet is heating up like a sauna on fire. We're facing imminent resource collapse. We are already way past sustainability. If we didn't add another single human being to this planet and kept on our current trajectory, we will run out of natural food, fuel, clean air, clean water, and living soil. Sadly, most overpopulator parents have had their heads purposefully jammed in the suburban sandbox. That's a polite way to say it. But I'm really partial to the head up the ass, you know.
I don't have the sound for that.
Most have never traveled widely and witnessed planet-scale degradation, unfathomable poverty, and all the other underbelly effects of loading a finite planet with an infinite number of voracious consumers. They're too busy shopping with their kids. We need to establish something. Every stable person on Earth believes in population control. Don't let the fundamentalists fool you. Every sane person on Earth believes in population control. Even people with kids. Wearing protection is population control. Taking the pill is population control. The rhythm method is population control. Abstaining is population control. It's just a matter of scale. Unless you're so hardcore that you treat your wife like a broodmare and have unprotected sex every literally single time you ejaculate, you have participated in population control. And that's a very good thing because it gives us common ground. Only insane people don't believe in reasonable population limits. There isn't a lucid person alive who doesn't believe there is a reasonable limit to how many humans should be on planet Earth at one time. Don't believe me? Just take it to the extreme. Should planet Earth contain 500 trillion people? Not one rational individual would say yes. What I'm suggesting is that all humans in their right minds believe in limiting the population. It's simply a matter of picking a personal number. There has to be a limit. 1 billion? 10 billion? 100 billion? If somebody legitimately believes that there should be absolutely no limit on the human population, I'm sorry to say it, but this person is a dictionary definition threat to civil society and should be sent back to school with some documentaries on poverty and planetary collapse so they wake up to reality. For everyone who isn't mentally deranged and profoundly anti-human, there is a human population limit. And since most people already believe in reasonable population limits, now it's just a matter of figuring out biology's natural and sustainable number. Anti-sustainable population arguments are embarrassingly stupid. Here are a few of the most common and utterly irrational arguments for continuing to populate an overpopulated planet. Number 1, limiting population is playing God. As a person of faith, this one makes me want to scream because the same people who make this argument already rely on playing God technology called the Haber-Bosch process. The process is how we affix nitrogen into the soil via fertilizer. Nicknamed the detonator of the population explosion, it allowed the human population to soar from 1.6 billion in 1900 to 8 billion today. It is also horrible for the planet. Without playing God by using Haber-Bosch, we'd only be able to feed a maximum of 3 billion people organically and sustainably. And that's just one way humans playing God, which is a dumb term. We aren't God. We have vitamins and GMOs and vaccines and electricity and all sorts of not naturally occurring in nature technologies. Unless someone rejects all of these, including the wheel, this argument is just hypocritical misdirection. Number 2, there's plenty of room. No, there isn't, suburban mom. Not if you know basic math and science. Earth has just 36.79 billion acres of land. Divided by 10 billion people, it's 3.7 acres per person to supply all of our oxygen, air filtration, soil, food, water, clothing, shelter, mining, transportation, iPhones, Pelotons, and still leave room for the 1.7 million other species with whom we share the planet and with whom we are deeply interconnected to ensure our mutual long-term survival. It is not nearly enough to live naturally and sustainably. Number 3, my nation's population is shrinking. The biggest pushback from rich Americans, Canadians, Brits, Aussies, etc., is that because our populations are shrinking, we can have as many kids as we like. Overpopulation is Africa's problem. But this doesn't hold water in a parched world. Number one, developed nations are the biggest polluters on the planet. One American consumes more resources than 32 Kenyans. Number two, automation will eliminate Western jobs faster than in developing nations. We need a population drawdown. Otherwise, we will face unfathomable unrest from hundreds of millions of unemployed people. Number three, though continued population growth is clearly unnecessary as jobs disappear, immigration can easily keep numbers steady for nations that still insist on population growth. Nigeria alone is projected to have more people than all of Europe by 2050. Expect our best, brightest, or richest Nigerian brothers and sisters to relocate to depopulating nations. But let's be honest, we're too racist to let that happen. We'd rather see them starve to death in Africa and feel good about ourselves by donating once or twice. Boy, this
Oh
is
my
a
God.
scathingly honest
Oh, it
article.
is. Oh, it is.
It's
Yeah.
scathingly honest.
Uh-huh.
It's not number four, it's not population, it's consumption. Another argument is that it's our ecological footprint that's the problem. And they're not entirely wrong, just trying to misdirect you. That we all just need to live like impoverished Africans and we can easily fit 10 or 12 billion people on the planet. But ultimately, it's not an either or thing. Avoid false dichotomies and focus on things that we can change because there are several huge problems with this, and it's not population's fault line of thinking. The first is the assumption that people in developed nations will ever willingly decrease consumption. We won't. Why not? Because our corporate global economy needs us to consume more and more. The second assumption is that poor people will stay poor forever, and they can't. 1 million people per day are moving into the slums. Millions still starve to death each year, and hundreds of millions still go to bed hungry. We need to end this, and capitalism wants to end this, which is why they're rapidly gaining billions of new customers across Africa and Asia. In 50 years, everywhere on Earth will be a full-time planet extracting consumer like we are. So, be honest, what's better? A few 100 million people living a super high quality sustainable life, or 12 billion of us suffering like sub-Saharan Africans? Clearly, the former, right? Number five, the earth will take care of itself. Is that really what we want? To overpopulate the earth to the point that a superbug wipes out the human species in a pandemic of unstoppable proportions? To create untold, widespread, horrific human suffering? Why are some people such gleeful Armageddonists, hell bent on our mutual destruction via the next bubonic plague? How is that a loving, pro human, pro life stance? And is that really better than simply having fewer children? I'd rather have some humans than no humans, or 500 million humans flourishing instead of 10 plus billion suffering. And who's to say humanity won't conquer nature completely? On our current path, we could end up with Wall-E World, where a few remaining robots rule a planet where 99.9999% of all forms of biological life has ceased to exist. Just look at the moon. Who's to say Earth might not look like that next to the dead rock? Number 6, technology will save us. Oh, the techno-weenies. I love the techno-weenies. No, it won't. Just like the techno-absurdists who think that we can thrive in an uninhabitable space, Homo sapiens aren't adapted for uninhabitable Earth either. If we're forced permanently indoors or underground because of extreme heat or cold, if we're forced to eat lab-grown vegan food, bugs, and electric grown plants because of soil extinction, if we blot out the sun and stars in our attempt to geoengineer a new biosphere, if we have to produce our own oxygen because of global drought, if we have to play God, it will not end well for us. We are a biological species that requires a biological world. Digital technology can only take us so far. What's interesting is that the rich already know that we were made for fields and forests and rivers and oceans and mountains and sun and moon and stars and wind and rain and snow. At the same time, the elites cannot fathom a world in which you do not live in a super hyper dense megacity while they live on sprawling estates, private islands, and super yachts. We were made to live on Earth. But we shouldn't assume that indoor screen based techno living is the ideal way to live on Earth. It's not. Number 7. But the population rate is falling. If your house is on fire, do you add more wood before starting to put out the flames? Hypercapitalists like Elon Musk, another toilet flush,
No, well, I'm going to do it.
love
All right, we
Love
flushed them
to-
again.
love to fearmonger about the impending population collapse while they simultaneously automate away human jobs. It's important to note that the world population collapse is a total misdirection. Not a single prediction chart sees us dropping from 10 billion to, say, 1 billion in the coming century. A leveling out and a tiny deflation over many generations is not a collapse. That's called fear-mongering. The overpopulationists are also cherry-picking the data. If you look at the actual UN predictions, they give a range. While fertility decline could ease us back to 7 billion, they also see a future in which we hit 16.5 billion.
Oh.
Within 79 years. It's never going to happen. No way. There's too many other things that's going to take it
Yeah,
down.
concurrently.
Oh my God. Their best middling guess, 11 billion. Any meaningful population declination isn't going to happen in our lifetime. We're on track to grow at least 10 billion, potentially even 12 by the century's end before we crest and trend slowly back to sustainability. But we don't have 100 years. Each generation's job is to deal with the challenges of their time, and ours is a collapsing ecosystem caused by overpopulation. The real reason why Silicon Valley billionaire types are worried about depopulation is that their insane business models require aggressive exponential growth forever. Depopulation threatens their profits. The corporate state is the same with their unsustainable pension funds as the general populace with their unsustainable retirement funds and sell to the next generation for more than we paid for real estate mindset. At present, the whole planet is set up as a Ponzi scheme rather than a sustainable and circular bioeconomy. Billionaires want more people fighting over limited supplies so they can keep jacking prices and pocketing the profits. When automation, AI machines learning takes over the way it's projected to do, we'll be begging God for a population collapse because otherwise we'll have billions upon billions of economically unviable people desperately fighting to survive. It also makes a massive assumption that things will continue to get better for the average person. See, when economies improve and women get educated, they start having fewer kids. This is a good thing, as it leads to a far higher quality of life for all. But does anyone really believe things are going to be better 50 years from now? With 10 plus billion on the planet? With billionaires controlling the entire global economy? With corporates privatizing healthcare and education and sinking the working class back into serfdom? With nationalist fascism taking over? With shelter prices through the roof? No freaking chance. There's nothing to say we won't see population growth rates pick back up again if we continue to see these declines in wealth, health, democracy, fresh water, soil nutrition, and education. And there is nothing that suggests that our trajectory is shifting toward the positive. Either way, the idea that we should continue adding billions of people to our already overtaxed planet because we might see declines in the future is, frankly, a preposterous notion. I can't believe people birth more than 2 kids when there are 210 million orphans in the world. Having 1 or 2 biological kids, as I can fathom, but knowing how overpopulated the planet is and knowing that there are 210 million orphans and still continue to have more than the replacement rate,
Oh my God.
I honestly don't have a box in it for my head. Is it genetic narcissism, thinking their bloodline is somehow special? Is it pure laziness, not willing to go through the adoption process? Is it a money thing? Is it racism? Is it fear? Is it a mix of all these things and more? The math in my head is simple. If you want tons of kids and you live on a dying planet that's full of orphans, kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Oh.
Overpopulators are anti-human. If you believe in planetary sustainability vis-a-vis Homo sapien population, you are de facto more pro-human than the overpopulationists. Read that sentence again. It's counterintuitive, but it's a mathematical fact. People who want to have fewer kids today so we can have more kids in the future are more pro-human than the overpopulators who want to have more kids right now. The more pro-human thing you can do right now is to have fewer children. Let me put this as simply and as concretely as I can. Would it be better to add another 3 billion children in the next few decades and witness a 7 to 10 billion people suffer in horrendous poverty and privation as the natural food chain collapses? Or would it be better to practice reasonable population restraint so that we can sustainably produce 50 million babies per year for tens of thousands of years to come? One scenario sees billions of children grow up and suffer and die in anguish, and the other scenario sees many hundreds of billions living a flourishing life. If you are truly pro-human, you want to maximize the most amount of babies over the most amount of time. That means sacrificing a tiny bit today for long-term human gain. Sadly, overpopulationists are insanely short-sighted. Childbirthing should be radically de-incentivized. We need to stop subsidizing overpopulation immediately. Overpopulation is just part of the rules-free market, grow forever capitalist scam. Corporations need more consumers so they can get their puppet politicians to subsidize short-sighted parents to birth more kids who will grow up, attend propaganda school, work as serfs for corporations, and overpay those same companies for the products they created. We need a genuinely fair and progressive tax system to incentivize reasonable family sizes and disincentivize overpopulation. Offer mega bonus to people who adopt and foster and make adoption free. Offer single and double bonus to couples who get a free vasectomy and tubal ligation combo after 2 or fewer kids. Stop making childless families pay the heavy cost of public education and health care for overpopulated families. Make overpopulated families pay the full tax cost of health care and education costs. Notice there are no fines or punishments for having more than the replacement rate. People can still do what they want to do. If you just have to take responsibility for your own choices instead of relying on others to carry your extra load, it's not right or fair that society should have to pay the cost for such a dangerous and short-sighted anti-commons decision. The ultimate solution to the overpopulation crisis is stupidly simple. Have fewer kids. Not an Orwellian one-child policy, just a culture and tax system that encourages sustainable human production. If you want 10 kids, have 3 and adopt 7. If you want 4, have 2 and adopt 2. Pick your number, then be slightly less selfish and think about others. I want 12 kids, but we're committed to max 2 biologicals. Think about your current kids in the overpopulated world that they're growing up in. Think about your future adopted kid who is currently languishing without parents because you haven't adopted them yet. Think about all the kids that could be sustainably born for millennia to come if you do the right thing and have fewer biological kids today. Ideally, try to birth 2 or fewer kids. That's the human replacement rate, and we need to slowly but surely draw down the human population to get back to sustainable levels. This is just the start. I have plenty more to say about overpopulation and sustainability. That's because I love babies. I am willing to fight anyone and everyone to protect them. I want them to live on a flourishing planet that can be naturally, sustainably provide for their needs without undue pain and suffering. I want this planet to be chock full of billions of babies for millennia to come because I want people to experience the joy and happiness I'm currently experiencing with baby Concord. And now that I have him, I can finally talk honestly about overpopulation. You should too. Oh boy.
Whoa! Holy crap! What an
Oh,
article
boy.
that was. That's
Yeah.
clip worthy. That's clip worthy. Absolutely clip worthy.
That was a good article.
Thank you for doing the whole thing. Wow, we
pleasure.
did go farther. We're a long show, and
Again,
but
we
we
try.
try.
Our intent is to keep it to an hour.
And I didn't even make an intermission. But you guys have been great. They've been chatting along, and
Have they?
yes, it's been really great. Hello, everybody. Giant Curve, Gazer, Rich Diana, Donald James, it's great to see you. Bella, and Anthony Davis, and Epimu, and Poppy, and Kinky, and Mindy. Mindy, it's great to see you here. And guess what?
Mindy.
Jonathan O is here with us, our
good. Hi,
editor.
Jonathan.
Yes. Editor of our Environmental Coffeehouse Facebook page, and so is Poppy now. And
Hi,
so
Poppy.
if you go, because I think if Twitter goes to shit the bed, we still have our Environmental Coffeehouse. Good stuff. And
Indeed.
on Facebook. So Jennifer, thank you for the show. I enjoyed
pleasure.
this one. We brought so many different viewpoints. Why don't you give us the bring up the rear ending?
Well, I mean, it's been the elephant in the room for the longest time, and we're just not mentioning it. And I'm so glad that we did a show completely dedicated to overpopulation. And I wish that people would be non-breeders. I mean, I am much more radical than that article we just read. I don't have children and I'm a non-breeder, and I'm cool with that, right? But a lot of people do not feel that way. And so because the population is on an upward curve, I mean, you all saw that population graph. I mean, it's more than a hockey stick. It's like going meow. And this whole thing is going to fall apart, and we're going to get into food shortages and loads of resource depletion. So this is kind of like the last minute before I just feel like we're just kind of like on the cusp of this bubble, that just hasn't quite popped. But I think that it probably will pop, and that we will see the consequences of this vast overpopulation issue that's going on Earth. It's our life, right?
It's our life.
It's our
Wow.
life. Yeah.
Well, at that, everybody, I'm going to say goodnight. Don't forget about our Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much to our new members and people that have been with us. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough. And Jennifer, I love you, and it is time for us to say good night. It is time for us to say good night.
Good night.